Salvation is announced as universal for believers. Reflections of Zarathustra upon the Sublimity and Bountifulness of Ahura. As in every instance, it is probable that verses have fallen out here and there in this important piece, and some may have been inserted, not necessarily from another composer, but from other compositions. After certain limits, however, marked signs of at least external connection are present. After the first three verses, which are quite apart, then from the fourth and fifth on, every alternate verse has the formula spentem at thwa. Mazda menhi ahura. It would indeed present no difficulty for a successor to add these words to stanzas otherwise, also imitated, but whether from the leading sage or not, whether from him in one strain or from him as collected from different fragments, the course of thought does not so fail in logical sequence as that it is either impossible or displeasing as a whole in a poetical composition. Verses 1 through 3 are admirable as preliminary. Verses 4 through 6, with their lofty descriptions of power and benevolence in the deity, prepare the way well, with their allusions to final judgment, for the closer reflection in verses 7 through 15 upon the prophet's call, uttered at the instigation of Zarathustra, his obedient will. Verse 16 is a closing strophe, looking much like an addition from another hand, not at all because Zarathustra is mentioned in the third person, but from its general cast. It possesses, however, very great interest from these circumstances. If a later addition, it enables us to see how the principal features of the system were viewed at a period not identical with the earliest, but closely following it. 1. If we can accept the deeply interesting suggestion of the Pahlavi translator, which is salvation to him to whom there is salvation for every man, we need then suppose no necessary loss of verses. Otherwise, we are obliged to consider the loss of some auditory verses, or verse containing such matter as perhaps Yasna 34:14. This princely priest has devoted all to thee, therefore salvation to him, whosoever he may be. Whatever may be the actual truth, the main stress of the thoughts is clear and appropriate, using the word vasa shayas in a good sense. The composer beseeches Ahura to grant these two mighty and external ones, which logically form the complement to each other, universal wholeness, welfare of soul and body, without which beatitude was inconceivable, and then the unlimited duration of the condition, for it is quite impossible that long life alone was here meant by a term, the equivalent of which soon after designated the bountiful immortals. We have here once again ample data for affirming the richness and depth of the religious conceptions. The powerful and continuous two are sought together, with splendor as rewards, not for the gratification of any selfish sentiment, but in order to maintain Asha, the religious order, on which the sacred polity and the tribal as well as the national wealth depended. But more than any general blessings, the individual sanctity of life. 2. And this is signalized as the highest good, and to this a purr is added for the Maya, which recalls the supernatural wisdom of the Indian Hercules, about which much fantastic and highly colored myth is grouped. But here, with the ever-recurring contrast, the Maya is the mysterious wisdom of the divine benevolence, colorless and abstract indeed, but yet possessing how great religious depth. 3. The highest blessing, in another and more than once repeated phrase, is again besought as the better than the good, even the attainment of the one who guides to the straight paths which are the way, even the conceptions and revelations of the Saviors, Yasna 34:13 and 53:2, in which the believer prospers, and Ahura dwells, as he dwells in his kingdom and his chosen home itself, Yasna 46:16. Whether this man who shows the paths of the bodily and mental world is the same as he who prays for the Yapta Ahba'u Astvat Aska Hyatka Manango, the boons of the two worlds, in Yasna 28:3, here referred to in the third person, there speaking in the first, and whether he is Zarathustra himself, are questions. It is only necessary to say that, if any relief is gained by the supposition, then, beyond a doubt, Zarathustra may have been the composer of both pieces or fragments here, as in Yasna 28:7, referring to himself as in the third person. There, in Yasna 28, also further representing another who prays, referring by name to him as the third. But was Zarathustra the only sacred singer, or was he the center of a group only, of which he was the life? Well, think about how people talk about Jesus. Well, how are we going to represent Jesus? So, I think it was done a bit more authentically here, but because they weren't making the guy out to be a god, and they didn't feel like they had to combine characters, you could say. But compare Yathra ve Asma'ani Sangani Gamaspa Havogva, Yasna 46:17. 4. Proceeding as if the first three verses were absent from his mind, as indeed they may have been only later brought together with what now follows, the composer begins his ascriptions of praise. He will regard Ahura as the all-bountiful and mighty, since he has carefully nurtured, as with his very hand, the aids of grace which he will bestow as gifts of forbearance on those now wicked, in the hope of penitence, and in the merciful threat of punishment, and in the devout disciple, whose piety is never ceremonial only, and these means of grace, although abounding in the inculcation of moral sanctity in thought, in word, and deed, see Vendad 8:100, where thought clearly refers to intention in the strongest sense of the term, are yet profane aside from the flame of the holy fire which rallied the masses to a national worship, and which was strong for the holy order, as well as by means of it. For these reasons he adores their giver, but for still another, it was because of the might of the good mind of Ahura approached him within them, and gave him strength for all that was before. 5. Like the Semitic prophet. What Semitic prophet? There's one's mentioned in the Bible, one's not mentioned in the Bible, but he poetically conceives himself as having beheld Ahura as the chief of the two spirits. Okay, see, it's clear that the two spirits are not, so Zervanism is refuted by this verse here. And as sovereign over all other powers when the world was born, and he regards him as having also then established rewards and punishments by his holiness, so separate in its dualistic distinctions from all complicity with evil, either by infliction or permission. And these rewards and punishments were to have their issue, not in time alone, but in the last turning of the creation, in its course. 6. And for Ahura's coming in this last changing, he fervently beseeches, as well as for the appearance of the sacred kingdom, established and guarded by the divine benevolence. And this consummation, he implies, will take place when the settlements shall have furthered in the righteous order, and by means of it, the end of progress having been obtained, for then the piety of men's souls will itself be their instructor, delivering the regulations which shall silence the controversy of the two sides. Yasna 31:3. And these regulations are as the wisdom of Ahura's understanding, Yasna 28:2, so penetrating that all thoughts lie bare to it, Yasna 31:13. And remember, like we have got the 3 books, we got the revealed and inspired by, God, or I guess stuff from the other side too. And then we have the book of nature, and we have the book of ourselves. The book of ourselves. How can we turn away the book of ourselves? Another, which is an interesting way of thinking of the blaspheming the Holy Spirit. It's like for blaspheming our own Fervasha. Carol Poke Runyon talked about that a lot. 7. He now declares the principles on which he accepted the divine call. Sarasha, verse 12. He says, drew near to question him, as he is called by Ahura, obedience, the same who constitutes the way to Ahura or finds his throne. Yasna 28:6. Now draws near him. I say, Sarasha, obedience, for if he is not so described as drawing near in this verse, he is assuredly so described in a verse nearly following the 12th. Beyond the question, the fine subjectivity here expressed was intended, as the seer cried, O righteousness, when shall I see thee in myself and within my people? So, now he means that his obedient spirit listens to the call of God. 8. And as his personified consciousness questions him as to his origin and the principles on which he would proceed, it represents the obedient people as well as the obedient sage. For the sense of Sarasha, while originally applied to the personal will, is not restricted to it. Loyalty questions him that loyalty may report his answers. He, therefore, responds, speaking in his name as Zarathustra, or else one thoroughly in unison with him, here speaks his name, and this is his statement as to indications which shall determine his personality. His course will be without a compromise. The unbelieving opposers, as he declares, shall meet no favor at his hands, but detestation, while to the devout disciple he will be as powerful as an aid, and this because his mind and thought are as if blinded to the present, fixed upon the ideal kingdom, while for the present he never ceases to toil on, making preparations for the Frashakard, and constructing him after him to set up the needed machinery of lore. Well, again, if you accept him as a prophet, you're not going to say that he's just making up a bunch of hymns or something. But 9. Again, his conscious and obedient will, as the angel of the deity questions him, and this time offers him that chief of wished-for objects to him, religious knowledge. He mentions the holy fire with its proper offering as the theme of his first inquiry. 10. And he beseeches Ahura to answer and to favor him, since he invokes such a complete endowment, going hand in hand with true piety and with no selfish interest in his prayer. He then, with the depth which I confess seems suspicious, acts of Mazda to put his petitions for him, recalling Yasna 28:11, where he beseeches Ahura to fill up his desire with what? Not he, the speaker, but with what he, Ahura, knows. To he, the good mind's gifts, are, with the conjectural improvement of the text, he asks of Ahura to question him, that he may be questioned indeed, saying, as it were, search me and know me, but the other reading, being retained as having superior point, and needing no conjectured text, we may see his further thought. Ask thou our questions for us, and then we shall never fail. Then we shall be no desireless, Anaesha men, spurned by the walking kine as flinching champions. Yasna 29:9. But we shall be indeed thy rulers, speaking our mighty wish, like the Isha Kshatra whom she sought. Yasna 29:9. Our wish shall work our will, it will according with the will of God. 11. He is, however, not blind to all that lies before him in accepting this call. he worships the bounty and majesty of Ahura, while he is impressing his soul with the import of this conference, and that notwithstanding, and nonetheless, because his will, when obeyed in action, will bring on earthly sufferings. Well, difficulties, perhaps suffering is 12. Notwithstanding all that may be in store for him, he hopes to make those doctrines treasures. Yasna 34:7. That is a spiritual wealth. Compare also Ahura's Isti. One only qualification would he add. Wait only before thou givest the word that I should go forth with thy new truths, which bring such suffering to him who first pronounces them. Wait till my obedient will, listening fully to all which thou shalt say, shall come to me, and then shall that obedient reverence in me and my beloved help on our effort, that we may spread abroad the tidings of thy promised recompense, to win the living to thee. Yasna 31:3. 13. That I may know and make known, so he continues, the true alms and objects of desire to those whom I am at thy word to go. Grant me for this long life within thy realm, although that life be full of bitterness. Verse 11, and Yasna 32:10 and 11. Yasna 46:1. For those who propagate thy cause. 14. Yea, as a friend, both wise and powerful, gives to a friend, send to me not only Sra'asha, an obedient listening will, but Rath no, but Rath no fractionem, abundant grace. Then, and then only, shall I be flanked with a proper ally. Then, with thy sovereign power, like my obedient will, as an angel sent forth from thee, and inspired by thy righteous order in law and ritual, in thought and word and deed, then I will go out to arouse and head the chiefs, gathering into spiritual hosts many believing priests, who even now would bear in mind and celebrate thy mysteries. 15. And he began with fearless severity, so he would end without a compromise. My patient suffering, so he implies as he proceeds, Yasna 46:1, reveals its lesson to me. My mind is long enduring, but that patience, although it may seem to some the cowardice of a pusillanimous protector. 29:9. Yasna. Yet it is not such in truth, for it declares within me and forces me to say, let no man please the wicked. This is our only prospect of success. 16. And casting back his thoughts, he or another in his name sums up all well. Thus doth Zarathustra choose the spirit, that spirit which animates the faithful and their chiefs. Yasna 33:9. And by his side every true believer utters his sympathizing prayer. Let the order of life and of the ritual become incarnate in our tribes, and strong because it has the valiant power of faithful men to obey and defend it. And let piety prevail till it covers our land, blessed with the favors of the sacred sun. And as she lives in the lives of true adherents, may she, in sympathy with a good mind, thus grant rewards for all our deeds. And the translation: salvation to this man, salvation to him, whosoever he may be. Let the absolutely ruling great Creator grant us, he, the living Lord, the two eternal powers. Yea, verily, I ask it of thee, O Ahura, to maintain in righteousness, and mayest thou also give it to me, O inspiring piety, splendor, as it is, holy blessings, the good mind's life. 2. Yea, to this one, may the man endowed with glory give that best of all things which thee, spiritual glory, and do thou likewise thyself reveal thine own gifts through thy most bountiful spirit, O Mazda, and do thou teach us thy wonderful thoughts of wisdom, those of thy good mind which thou hast revealed to us by thy righteousness within us, with the happy increase of our joy, and on a long life's every day. 3. And may that holy man approach towards that which is the better than the good, he who will show to us the straight paths of spiritual profit, the blessings of this corporeal life, and of that the mental, in those veritably real, eternal worlds where dwells Ahura, that holy man, an offerer of thine, O Mazda, a faithful citizen, and bountiful of mind. 4. Yea, I will regard thee as mighty and likewise bountiful, O Ahura Mazda, when I behold those aids of grace approach me, aids which thou dost guard and nurture as thy just awards to the wicked to hold him far from us, as well as to the righteous for our help. Thy fires flame therewith so strong through the holy order, and when to me the good mind's power comes. 5. 4. So conceived of thee as bountiful, O great giver, Mazda, when I beheld thee as supreme in the generation of life, when as rewarding deeds and words thou didst establish evil for the evil, and happy blessing for the good, by thy great virtue, to be adjudged each in his creation's final change. 6. In which last changing thou shall come, and with thy bounteous spirit and thy sovereign power, O Ahura Mazda, by deeds of whom the settlements are furthered through the righteous order and saving regulations, likewise unto thee shall Automata utter, she are piety within us, yea, laws of thine understanding which no man may deceive. 7. Yea, I conceived of thee as bountiful, a great giver Mazda, when he, thy messenger, obedience, drew near me, and asked me thus, Who art thou, and whose is thine allegiance, and how today shall I show the signs that give the light on this our question, signs as to the lands from whence thou camest, and in thyself. 8. Then to him I, Zarathustra, as my first answer said, to the wicked, would that I could be, in very truth, a strong tormentor and avenger, but to the righteous may I be a mighty help and joy, since to preparations for thy kingdom and in desire for its approach, I would devote myself so long as to thee, O Mazda, I may praise and weave my song. 9. Yea, I conceived of thee as bountiful, O Ahura Mazda, when thine herald, with thy good mind, near approached me, and asked me thus, For what dost thou desire that thou mayest gain, and that thou mayest know it? Then for thy fire and offering of praise and holiness, I desired, and on that offering for myself, as long as I have the power will I meditate, and for its holy power among thy people will I plan. 10. And mayest thou likewise grant me thy righteousness within me, since I earnestly invoke that perfected readiness of mind, joining in my prayer with Automata, our piety towards thee, yea, pray thou thyself within me, through these holy powers. Ask thou thyself our questions, those which should be asked by us of thee, for a question asked by thee, as its inspirer, is as the question of the mighty, whene'er thy ruler speaks his potent wish. 11. Yea, I conceived of thee as bountiful, O Ahura Mazda, when thy messenger, with thy good mind, near approached me, and with your words I first impressed my soul. Woes then, midst men, thy heart devoted one, declared to be my portion. But that will I do which thou didst say was best. 12. And since thou coming thus, thy legal righteousness in fullness spakest, then declare not to me words as yet unheard. With faith or knowledge, command me not to go forth with these upon my task. Before thy Sra'asha, obedience comes to me to go on hand in hand with me, with holy recompense and mighty splendor, whereby to give the contending throngs as a blessing your spiritual gifts of certainty and peace. 13. Thus I conceived of thee as bounteous, O Ahura Mazda, when with thy good mind, Sra'asha, obedience, approach me, and I would therefore pray thus of thee, that bounteous one, in order that I may make known to men. Remember the gender neutrals, we're talking all humans, the true and sacred alms of their desires, and the right our daily toil. Grant ye me long life, for this that blessing, which none with the daring may extort from you, even this gift of that desired place which has been declared to be within thy realm. 14. Yea, as the man enlightened in thy law, and who has possessions gives to his friend, so give ye me, O great Creator, thy rejoicing and abounding grace, when through thy sovereign power and from the motives of thy cause of righteous order I stand forth to go out to or to arouse the chiefs of thy pure proclamation with all those others who recite thy well-remembered Matra word. 15. Yea, I conceived of thee as bounteous, O Ahura Mazda, when, with the good mind's grace, thy Sra'asha obedience approached me, and said, let the quiet and long-enduring better mind with understanding teach thee. Let not a foremost man conciliate the wicked as sycophant desiring aid. For with that quiet mind of faith, thy saints have brought full many a sinner unto thee as comfort and in penitence. 16. Thus, O Ahura Mazda, this Zarathustra loves the spirit, and every man most bounteous praise besides him. Be righteous, life strong, and clothed with body in that holy realm which shines a splendor as the sun. Let piety be present, and may she, through the indwelling of thy good mind, give us blessings in reward for deeds. And so we're going to turn back to the commentary here. We're at towards the last of the process and struggles of the cause. Let's see if we can finish that. And okay, 252. We have okay. O Ahura Mazda, declare to us the truth with verse 17 here. Or with others be thou, but the gloss of the Pahlavi translation contains an explanation which may well afford the true solution, as in so many instances in which he is both consciously and inadvertently followed. It reads, Ig mano bara kavit unino. May we not see an as or a in the form, or at least a separate Iranian root, as also in asda, where the Pahlavi translator gives the same explanation, mildly suited to the context. Neryosang, which is it, the pure soul or the wicked, who teaches as the great one, that intelligent speaks to the intelligent? Be not thou ignorant after this, because ignorance is from the deceiver. Instruct us, O great wise one, the Lord. Furnish us with a sign through the best mind that is. Make me steadfast in good conduct through the recognition of the deen. Such renderings may suffice to show that an examination of these ancient translations in our search for hints is imperative, yet the practice prevails of omitting a knowledge of the Pahlavi language, on which not only the oldest translation of the Avesta, but also the irregular Sanskrit of Neryosang closely depends. And with the next verse, mention of the sinner, Jolly has keiner van Ukore auf die Leider und Gebote des Lügners. Roth has wrath and Bethele. And we compare Avidva'o in verse 17 with the mention of the ignorance in verse 18. Dus Rubisni is, we're talking about the ruin, and Sazed Zaneh, prepare the saber that was ever a two-handed weapon, and the halberd. Okay. The Pahlavi Persian manuscript, Wama Kas Aadun as Zuma Ki U, Darwan Mansar Sunawad Wa Amu Tisan Ku as Asmokan Awesta Wa Zand Ma Sunawad Ke Andar Mahal Sahar Wa De Dehad Bad Raftisen Wa Marg An E Asmog Aedun Osan Asmogan Ra Sazad Silla. And it's very close there. And so in the verse 19 we talk about the difference between guided in the way and conjecture, right? And then we have something like Yasna 30, verse 2, behold ye the flames which the better mind, possibly also chapter 30, verse 1, the signs of which light friendly. And according to the grammatical forms, I guess we're not going to finish it. He doth guide us. And verse 19, let's see if we can finish that. The agent here must be a divine being, as Ye Manta Hashem Ahubes, like verse 7, is a characteristic of the deity. The vocative, as strange as it may seem, does not necessarily exclude Ahura, as the subject referred to in Ye. Several analogous cases occur. The deity may here, however, represent his prophet, as the Avesta do their worshippers in the later Avesta. Some writers force the language into a reference to the human subject for the sake of the greatly to be desired simplicity. One places Ahura in the instrumental, a case in which the Almighty seldom appears. The above translation needs no alternative, as the language would be the same whoever you refer to. And it's interesting, you can see the different periods, certain things get inserted into the text, but it's easier to figure out than the Bible.